Hi, my name is Jeff Hoyt, and today I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts and theories on detox, how the body processes metals and other toxic elements, and just how I think things are really working in the body and why some people have a more difficult time detoxing than others. I think living in the 21st century, education around detox and finding effective strategies to remove deeply stored toxins from our bodies is more important than ever. So starting off, why should we detox? First, it's important to understand that detox is controlled by the body. The body is always detoxing to some extent. We've got natural detox organs, we've got the kidneys, the liver, and the skin. And some would argue from the medical community that we don't need any additional detox support because we're always naturally detoxing. Now, that's true to some extent, but what happens when our body's natural ability to combat toxins is not able to handle the total toxin burden? What happens then? And that's where I think detox support comes in. And I think that it's clear at this point that the body does store toxic elements. They accumulate in organs and in tissue and in various parts of the body. And I believe that sometimes it's more difficult to remove these things than we think. So how do we become toxic? How do these toxic elements accumulate in our bodies? And when you think about it from just a self-preservation technique from the body, the body's more focused on short-term survival over long-term thrival or over long-term function of the body. For example, the body would prefer to have metals stored in organs where they're causing some level of damage, opposed to have them floating around in circulation where they're more of an immediate threat, resulting in strong immune reactions, which causes inflammatory processes and a number of symptoms. So basically, if someone there's only a certain amount of energy the body has to deal with everything going on. And if the body is preoccupied with other things, then I call it detox energy, the total amount of detox energy is going to be reduced, and the body's going to have to do something with these toxins. So let's say, for example, you're exposed to a significant amount of mercury. The mercury enters your body, it's circulating, the body's trying to process it. So I think the body tries to remove what it can, and I'm going to get into what I call the 3-level theory of detox. This is how I think the body kind of processes and stores metals here. So level 1 is going to be circulation. So the metal comes in the mercury, it's floating around. The body tries, through natural detox functions, to get rid of as much of this mercury as it can. Ideally, it gets rid of all of it. And if you're perfectly healthy, it might be able to do so, depending on the amount of exposure. Now, whatever the body is not able to get rid of, it has to do something with. It doesn't want to keep this mercury floating around where it's causing strong immune responses and a very stressful experience. So there's a certain threshold the body can handle in circulation. Beyond that, you're going to start getting a number of terrible symptoms. So the body, whatever it can't get rid of, has to do something. I think it then pushes this mercury into what I consider level 2. And that's going to be general tissue, kind of fat cells somewhere. And I would consider this a holding area for the toxic elements. The body's waiting for things to calm down in level 1, which is just circulation, and then it's going to dump this mercury back into level 1 to get it out when it has more capacity to do so. Now, if that doesn't become the case and level 1 continues to be at full capacity and the body can't handle anything else, it's not going to release this mercury from level 2 back into level 1, so it just keeps it in this level 2 fat storage. Now, what happens when level 2 fills up? It has to go somewhere else because now that storage bin, we'll call it, is full. And once it leaves there, I would consider where it goes to be level 3 or deep storage. And I think this is going to be organs and just deeper level tissue, where at that point it becomes more difficult to remove this mercury because the body becomes comfortable with it there. Now, at this point, I think it's very difficult to remove because the body has so much toxicity. Level 1 is full, level 2 is full, now you've got level 3 filling up, and eventually this could be very problematic because you have this very toxic compound mercury that is damaging cells and various organs. I think this is where things get challenging because people assume that they can go in with a chelator or some sort of detox agent and just go rip this mercury out of organs and tissue and everything is going to be great. But really, it's up to the body to release this mercury. And that's the challenge because in order to have an effective detox, we need to work on all 3 levels of toxicity. We need to work on level 1 to make room for the body to naturally release level 2 and level 3 toxins for excretion. And I think that's really the key, because detox is up to the body. If the body does not want to let go of a toxic element like mercury, no matter what you do, it's not going to let go. And I think that's why some individuals become more toxic than others, because their body is just not able to prioritize detox, and that's the challenge. So in a lot of people that have some sort of complex or chronic illness get tested and they have high levels of heavy metal, and they assume that it's the heavy metals that are causing their issues. But and I think that the heavy metals are probably contributing to the issue, but it's possible that they have the higher levels of heavy metals because of a deeper underlying issue, and their body was not able to prioritize detox anymore because it was focusing on some sort of chronic infection or something else. So I'm going to show an example here. It's the best way I can explain how the body detoxes, and it just shows that it's not about the supplement you're taking, it's not about the chelator, it's about your body's natural willingness to let go. So really the key to an effective detox is to get healthy enough to detox, to get your body's natural detox functions working, and that's going to involve a comprehensive broad spectrum approach, because if you're just targeting a specific thing like mercury or a metal with a chelator, it's probably not going to be very effective if you have a complex health issue, because your body's not going to want to deal with that additional stress of releasing it when it has so many other things going on. All right, we're going to look at this example just showing how the body processes metals, and when the body is exposed to some sort of external stressor or internal stressor, the body stops prioritizing detox and the metals stay in storage. So this is an individual who was tested 4 times over 1 month, so every week for a month, and this individual had mercury, the silver amalgam fillings in the mouth, which contain a lot of mercury. So you can see that we have high levels of silver and mercury, primarily probably from those fillings. This was generally a healthy individual, not symptomatic, 73 years old, not really having a lot of complaints, but we can see there was still a pretty good level of silver and mercury in the tissue. This is a tissue test. It's the OligoScan. So it's measuring the levels of metals in the tissue of your hand. So basically, back to the 3-level theory, level 1, 2, 3, this is measuring level 2 because it's general tissue. So this is comparing 2 tests. This is day 0 to day 7. So we can see that already after 7 days, and this was taking 10 grams of a zeolite powder, ZeoCharge, you can see after 7 days, he's already releasing metals. So basically, as the metals rise on this test, it's indicating that metals are leaving a deeply stored area, which I would consider level 3, probably organs, and they're higher in the hand because they're heading to level 2, which will then ultimately head to level 1 and head out of the body. So 1, this shows us that this individual before was taking no supplements, doing no detox regimen at all, and his body was just keeping these metals deeply stored in organs because it was comfortable with them there, and it just didn't want to let them go, which is just typical with people. So even in a healthy individual, a lot of times they do need some additional support to encourage the body to start releasing these metals from tissue. Now, after just 7 days, and this doesn't always happen, especially for people that have complex issues, but since he was healthy, after only 7 days, his body already started releasing most of these metals. So the mercury, silver, pretty incredible. Now, what happens the next week? So this is day 0 to 7. This is day 0 to 14. His body's releasing even more. So his body released a little bit of metal. His second week, the body released even more. So the metals are coming out of level 3 deep storage. They're coming in to the general tissue, level 2, and they're preparing to leave the body. That's why you want these levels to be higher. That's a good thing. And you can see that all the levels are pretty much rising, meaning that he had tissue accumulation of all these metals, which most people do, because just over time, the body starts accumulating these things and just keeps them jammed in fat. Now, what I also wanted to point out is that we also measured his vitamins and minerals. So after the first week, his vitamin status is already improving. So not only is he removing these metals, but it's an efficient detox, meaning it's reducing the total stress load on his body while detoxing, which is what we're going to get into later, because that's the only way really to effectively detox. On the second week, vitamins are even better. And he's not taking any supplements. This individual was in a cold environment with very little sun in January and not taking a vitamin D supplement, not getting sun, and his vitamin D level is skyrocketing, and all of his vitamins, because some sort of stress is being reduced on his body, whether it's the metals or something else, and his body's naturally retaining vitamins more, potentially because zeolite's an antioxidant, reducing oxidative stress, so his antioxidant vitamins don't have to be used. Some mechanism. Another interesting note on his minerals, his his high zinc copper indicates some sort of inflammatory immune response, and that is calming down. So it calmed down a little bit after 1 week. After 2 weeks, it calmed down more. So basically, he's getting healthy. Not only is he detoxing, it's effective, but it's efficient, meaning it's actually reducing stress in his body and not adding stress to the body. Now, this is what I want to show you. 2 weeks, everything's going great, and he's feeling nothing this whole time, right? He never felt anything during this 4-week period, although we see that he's clearly detoxing. Now, after the next week, this is weeks 2 to 3, he noted that his son got pretty sick with some sort of something, and it was very symptomatic, coughing, sneezing, all that stuff, and he was around him. And it's clear that something started stressing out this individual. Now, he never noticed any sort of symptoms. He never got sick, but you can tell that his immune system was triggered by something. One, because now his immune markers, zinc, copper, have reactivated. His immune system's reactivated. You can see that his vitamin status is now tanking. So his body's using up additional resources to fight something, and his body stops detoxing. So all those metals that were rising before are now going down. Now he's taking the ZeoCharge still, right? The Zeolite, the 10 grams. He didn't change anything with this protocol, but it's not about the product, it's about the body's response. So it's now that the body is dealing with some sort of infection or some sort of toxicity that is the body has to prioritize, it says, let's not focus on detox right now. Instead, let's focus on this infection. So now the levels are going down because the ZeoCharge is still grabbing it and it's removing it. So very interesting stuff. And then on the next week, and it's possible that he didn't feel sick because he had built up such a nice reserve of vitamins from the previous 2 weeks on the product. Otherwise, he may have felt sick. So that's interesting. Week 3 to 4. So this is week 2 to 3. And then the next week, he's already starting to detox again. So the metals are starting to rise again. And his vitamins are popping back up. So basically, he was detoxing. Well, the metals are coming out of deeply stored organs, which they were not doing on its own. These metals have probably been there for 50 years, right? He's in his 70s. He's had these fillings for 50 years. So he probably wasn't able to detox these things on his own, but he took the ZeoCharge, 10 grams, and his body started pushing things out. But once he was exposed to some sort of other stressor, his body said, I cannot prioritize detox right now. I need to use that energy on something else. It depleted some of his vitamins because it was utilizing them. He never got sick. His body stopped detoxing, and then his body recovered and he started detoxing again. So in this case, you can see that body is in complete control of the detox process. And just taking this into consideration, you can see why someone that is not healthy, someone that's dealing with a complex health challenge, Lyme disease, mold toxicity, something they've been dealing with for 20, 30, 40 years, or however long, their body's not going to be efficiently detoxing because it's prioritizing these other things instead. Now, the thing about metals and other toxic elements is the body has a storage unit for them. So that's why the body doesn't always prioritize to detox them. It might not be able to store some of these other pathogens and other things that the body is using extra energy for. But when it's fighting those things, then the body says, you know what? Let's just jam this mercury, let's jam these metals, let's jam these toxic elements. Let's just jam them into fat and we'll deal with them later when we have more energy. The problem is the body usually never gets to the point where it starts dealing with them later. Because one, the initial stressors and the workload in the body is never reduced to the amount the body is able to work on detox. And two, the body just gets comfortable with these toxic elements in fat and it never lets them go. So in this individual's case, since he was non-symptomatic, pretty healthy, it was probably just the accumulation of the mercury and other metals over time from the amalgam fillings. But it's also possible that there was some sort of toxic event at one point in his life where his body just in a couple of days accumulated some level of toxicity from an acute exposure, and then the body just left it there forever. So you can see why it's more difficult than one would think to actually detox, because the key to detox is to get healthy enough to do so, right? To have enough detox energy, to reduce the other stressors on the body so the body can prioritize working on detox. Because if those things are not addressed, the body does not want to dump extra toxicity from organs and tissue back into circulation because it's going to cause stress in the body and the body might not be able to handle it, and that could be an issue. So this brings us to the topic of detox reactions. A lot of people will say that when they go on some sort of detox protocol, detox reactions such as headaches, irritability, joint pain, or something where they're feeling worse than they were before, they're saying that this is a healing crisis. This is a good sign. It means the protocol is working. I believe that it's actually a sign that the protocol is not working very efficiently, right? So you're stirring things up, but the detox reaction is simply a sign that your body can't handle the level of toxicity that has just been put into circulation by the detox protocol. Now, this is a little bit different than die-off reactions or Herxheimer reactions where you're killing microbes and, toxins are being released, waste products from the microbes. A little bit different. Detox reactions are more related to, die-off reactions might be a part of it, but more related to redistribution of toxic elements and just a total stressful experience on the body during the detox process. So when you consider how detox works with the 3-level theory and how if the body's under stress, it's going to stop detoxing, you can see that if you're experiencing detox reactions for more than a few days, you're probably really not detoxing very efficiently. It's probably a situation where you're just stirring things up and you're potentially not even detoxing at all. You're just retoxing, where toxic elements are being stirred up and moving to another area. You may be moving some things out, but it's very unlikely that you're going to be removing deeply stored toxic elements if you're getting any sort of detox reaction. Because if you are getting a detox reaction, it's just a sign that in level 1 circulation, your body is at max capacity, and it's over max capacity because your body can't even handle the total stress of what's going on there. So if that's the case, your body is not going to let metals come from level 2, and especially not level 3, into level 1 because your body can't handle it. And it's up to the body to release these metals for detox. So really, I think the key is for an effective detox is that it has to be gentle. Because otherwise, and I think there's another issue where potentially the body develops some sort of detox PTSD, where you've tried a number of detox products in the past, it's caused negative reactions, your body remembers that, and then it stops releasing these deeply stored metals because it doesn't want those reactions to occur again, and it just becomes more difficult to detox, and these people that have complex issues just generally never get rid of these metals out of their body. So I think the key is to remove as many of the circulating toxins as possible and the other things that are causing stress on the body so that there's room now in level 1 to receive the toxic elements from levels 2 and level 3. I think that's really the key. That's why I think a lot of synthetic chelators and detox supplements and homeopathics are not always as effective they're just not that effective generally in people with complex issues, is because they're not addressing enough things in level 1 where there's room for the body to have more energy to focus on detox. I think something to understand that's really important is that people that are healthy are going to respond very differently to detox supplements or chelators than someone that has a complex health issue. Now, a lot of people assume, and the challenge is the people that have the complex health issues need to detox the most, but they have the most difficulty detoxing because their body, as a defense mechanism, is generally not wanting them to detox because they can't handle the process. So it has to be a gentle process, and it has to be something that's a broad spectrum approach. So a lot of people think they take some sort of supplement and it's supposed to cross the blood-brain barrier, it's supposed to get into organs, and it's supposed to grab things. The problem with that is if you're not healthy and your body doesn't want to let go of the toxic element, it's not going to let go no matter what you do. So consider synthetic chelators, right? Synthetic chelators are designed specifically generally for metal toxicity, and some of them are very strong binders, right? They have a very strong capacity to grab things. So take, for example, SAR, which is probably the strongest known chelator ever developed by Boyd Haley, specifically for mercury. It's got such a strong bond to mercury that once it's bound to it, it generates a completely non-toxic compound that can be fed to animals, doesn't even hurt them. So this is an incredibly strong chelator. It was designed specifically to go into fat, to bind to mercury primarily, but also lead, cadmium, arsenic, free iron, free copper. But it goes in and it's hydrophobic, so it goes straight to fat. And it's in the animal studies, it was able to remove the metals from all the organs of the animals. And even in the human studies, it's been able to remove mercury from the body very effectively. Now, when people take that with a complex health issue, it just does not work that way, because you have to consider acute exposure to mercury opposed to chronic bioaccumulation over time. So if you were just exposed to mercury, so a lot of the research was done in coal miners or the animals that were injected with mercury. Either way, when you're just exposed to mercury, you take the chelator, yes, it's going to go in and be able to grab all the mercury because your body doesn't want it. It's new, it's causing a lot of stress right then. Yes, that works in studies. people then assume that if they've had this, chronic mercury toxicity for 30 years, it's going to do the same thing. It just generally doesn't happen, because in those cases, the body often doesn't want to let go of the mercury, because you've been gradually accumulating small amounts of mercury over many years or decades, and then your body doesn't necessarily want to let go, because when it lets go, it's a stressful experience on the body. So that's why someone that is healthy can generally take a chelator. It might be very effective at removing things from the tissue, or even other natural products. But if you have a more complex health issue, it generally is not going to work that way. And when you have a complex health issue, really the most effective and potentially the only way to detox is to get your body to naturally release the toxic elements. So a lot of people think they're taking these things, whether they're liquid zeolites or any number of natural supplement or chelators, and they think they're removing stuff, and they're getting terrible symptoms. A lot of times they're not removing anything from deep storage. They're just stirring things up in circulation. And that's a problem with things like maybe nano zeolites or various things where their claim to fame is they're very small. They're supposed to be able to cross the blood-brain barrier, go into tissue and rip out metals. But if your body doesn't want to let go, it's not going to let go. And if it's not going to let go of mercury for people taking OSR, which is the strongest known chelator for mercury, it's not going to let go from a zeolite either. So that's the problem. So that's the key, is removing as many things from level 1 and getting the body as healthy as it can be so it can naturally release level 2 and 3 toxins. What should you expect to feel when you're detoxing? A lot of people are going on detox protocols because they want to feel better. But if your goal is to remove deeply stored metals and toxic elements from tissue and organs, ideally you feel nothing or you feel better, but a lot of times you're not going to feel better for a while. If you feel worse, we know that that's not ideal, because it means it's causing a stressful experience on the body. But if you feel nothing, it actually is a good thing if you're actually detoxing, because that means your body's safely removing toxic elements without causing additional stress. And that's really the only way to get these things out. Now, the people that feel better right away, it's generally not from the removal of the toxic elements from tissue. It's generally from removing the circulating toxicity back in level 1. So I consider this the daily dose, and that's kind of the key. One of the keys to detox is to effectively address your daily dose of toxins. So daily dose of toxins is just going to be what you're exposed to on a daily basis. And that's going to be made up of your external exposure of toxic elements. That's, food, water, air, cosmetics, all sorts of things we're exposed to. But then also the most overlooked aspect of toxicity is the internally produced toxins. And our bodies are basically toxin factories. We're producing all sorts of toxic elements on a daily basis. Things like metabolic waste products, things like microbial waste products. And if our natural detox functions are not working properly, just these internally produced toxins might be too much for the body to handle. So for example, some metabolic waste products are going to be things like ammonia. And our body's naturally producing ammonia just during digestion as a metabolic waste product. But if our liver is not working properly, which breaks down ammonia and converts it to urea, then we have a buildup of ammonia. And ammonia is very toxic to the central nervous system. It can get into the brain and cause a number of issues. And if your kidneys aren't working properly, potentially you have a buildup of urea, and that's also very toxic. So basically, we've got all this stuff going on. Then we've got the microbial issue, where if you're not healthy, you're going to have microbial issues, overgrowth of yeast, bacteria, parasites, etc., because they're opportunistic. They need an opportunity to thrive, and if you're not healthy, the opportunity is there. And then the problem with those pathogens is that they're releasing a number of waste products, which are also adding toxicity to your body. So just on a daily basis, the toxins produced from the microbes in your body and your own metabolic waste products, sometimes that alone is too much to handle. And addressing those is going to be step 1, because if that's putting your level 1 toxicity at its threshold, where your body is just at max capacity, or it can't even handle that. And some people are experiencing detox reactions every single day without even taking detox products, because they can't even handle their daily load of toxins. So they're having the reactions because their body can't handle just what they're exposed to. If that's the case, then you're probably not going to ever get to level 2 or 3 detox without addressing that, because the body's not going to want to release anything in there. Now, sometimes you can take a chelator or a detox agent, it grabs something from level 2, pushes it into level 1, you feel way worse. Once again, not ideal. We have to really address level 1. So if you're that kind of person that's dealing with all sorts of things, maybe you're exposed to mycotoxins and you've got excess histamine, a lot of oxidative stress with free radicals, all sorts of things just causing stress in circulation, then you might feel better right away when going on a detox protocol if you're effectively addressing those things, right? So those are the type of people when they'll take like ZeoCharge, the Supercharged Zeolite, they'll remove some of those circulating toxins, which just calms the storm in the body, and they'll feel better right away. So people assume when they take it that I'm feeling great because I'm detoxing these deeply stored metals. Generally not the case. It's generally because they're removing the circulating toxins, the daily dose of toxins that are stressing out their body, causing symptoms, and just by removing those, they're able to get symptoms relief. But that doesn't necessarily mean they even started detoxing yet. Considering the daily dose of toxins and just how many toxic elements that we're exposed to on a daily basis that are regenerative, meaning they're new every morning, it really makes us have to understand that sometimes we need very high doses of zeolite to remove the deeply stored elements. Because, for example, a lot of people take low doses of zeolite or other detox agents and it grabs to some of the circulating toxicity, which does make them feel better. And they can be doing that for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, but if they're just binding to regenerative toxins and not really removing the root cause, then they're really potentially never even getting to levels 2 and 3 detox. So I've seen many people that have been taking a lot of detox products for many years. They assume they've been detoxing, but they're not, because detox is just harder than people think. Because it goes back to it's not about the products, it's about your body's natural ability and willingness to release the toxic elements. And that's where getting detox is just harder than people think. So with zeolite, I have found zeolite to be the single most effective tool for removing the deeply stored toxic elements. And that's because it's so broad spectrum, I think. Because it's binding to excess histamine, it's binding to free radicals, it's binding to mycotoxins, it's binding to ammonia, urea, heavy metals, radioactive materials, all sorts of toxic elements that are floating around. It's really helping clean up your daily dose of toxins. And the key is two things. One, it's able to do so gently because it's able to do so without binding to your essential minerals or negatively impacting vitamin status, as long as it's used properly. And two, it's able to be taken at a high enough dose to get the proper results. And I think that's where most other detox agents fall short. One, they're either stressing out the body too much because it's an inefficient detox, or it's directly binding to minerals or something. Or two, they're just not able to get a high enough dose because it's causing too much stress when they do so, because it's not a selective binder, or it's causing constipation or something else. Things that ZeoCharge, people can take higher doses of ZeoCharge and not have those same issues. So really the key is, one, finding the right product. I think Zeolite is in general an incredible product. It has to be used properly, and you can understand with what I've said how the dosing is so crucial. So a lot of people are taking smaller doses of zeolite, such as liquid zeolites, and they think they're removing all these deeply stored things, but they're such low doses that it's likely never even getting past level 1. It's likely just grabbing onto some of these circulating things, potentially making people feel better, and then they go off of them a year later and they feel worse. And that's probably because they never even actually detoxed what was stored. They're only binding to the regenerative daily dose toxins. So just for and that's why even with high quality zeolite powders like ZeoCharge, that has to be taken at the proper dose to get the proper results. So for reference, liquid zeolite products generally have 1 to 5 milligrams of zeolite per serving. Some of them have a little bit more, some of them have less. And liquid zeolite is just powdered zeolite mixed with water. That's the first thing to understand. Sometimes they're smaller particles, sometimes they're not. But you've got 1 to 5 milligrams of zeolite. ZeoCharge has 5,000 milligrams or 5 grams per scoop. And a lot of people, especially the complex health challenged people, a lot of times need up to 6 scoops or 30 grams per day, 30,000 milligrams. Now, for example, one of the popular liquid zeolites in the market has 300 micrograms per serving. So 30 grams, 30,000 milligrams is exactly 100,000 times the dose of one of those servings. So you can see, and that's what's needed in some of these people to get an efficient detox. So you can see how with like liquid zeolites, generally these people are just never detoxing. I think there's potentially sometimes there's a benefit. It might just be placebo, but I do think in some of the products there is a benefit, whether it's some sort of homeopathic mechanism or it's just because it is binding to things in the gut that are potentially helping reduce the total toxic burden. But in terms of getting to the deeply stored stuff, it's just generally not going to happen. with the liquids. And basically the whole marketing plan for the liquid zeolites is that they're small, they're able to cross cell membranes, potentially get into the brain. But if it's consumed and all of the zeolite is immediately used up in the gut to bind to the daily dose of toxins, how is it ever going to make its way to the tissues and organs? And even if it were to get there somehow and bypass the gut, then if the stuff in the gut has not been addressed, the body's not going to want to release those toxic elements from the brain or organs or tissue because the gut hasn't been addressed. So that's why I haven't really found good results with the liquids for that reason. Not that they're not good quality. Some of them are very good quality. It's just that you have to get the right quality and quantity with Zeolite. So with ZeoCharge, it's great. It's great quality. And it has larger particle sizes to stay in the gut, smaller particle sizes to act as a full body detox. And actually the particle sizes in ZeoCharge, the smaller ones, are smaller than most of the liquids even. So it's not that the liquids are just super small. Some of them are smaller, most of them are not though. So that's the thing. I found Zeolite, just in general, ZeoCharge, to be the most effective thing. One, because it's broad spectrum and you can get the high enough dose. But we did the case studies program at Zeolite Labs and saw that some people just needed an incredibly high dose of Zeolite to actually start detoxing. Because there's the binding dose and there's the detox dose. The binding dose is what's going to be going in and grabbing to the daily dose, the things in the gut and just circulation, just the general things you're exposed to on a daily basis through regenerative toxins. And you could potentially be feeling much better on that dose because you're calming the immune system, because you're removing stimulatory substances. But if it's not enough to get the body to naturally release, you're not going to be getting that next level detox. And we saw that in a number of the case studies where people were feeling better and they were getting good results on a low dose, but they didn't actually start dumping the deeply stored metals till a high dose. So very interesting. It just shows you that it's not about the product. It's not the chelator. It's not the zeolite that's going in and actually ripping things out of cells, especially in complex health issues, people with complex health issues. The key to an effective detox is to get your body to naturally release these things from organs and tissues safely. That's really the key. And in order to have an effective detox, you need to have an efficient detox. If you're experiencing detox reactions, you're probably not really detoxing much at all. Just a quick note on detoxing the brain, because that's a big trend. For good reason, we want to get as many toxic elements out of the brain as possible. But my thing is detox, and my primary thing I use is Zeolite because I found it to be so effective when used properly. But a lot of the companies are marketing that their zeolite is going to be able to go and cross the blood-brain barrier and it's able to easily remove all this stuff from the brain. And first of all, there's no substantiation for those claims. There's just no way to know if any of those things are actually making it to the brain or able to cross the blood-brain barrier, because you have to look at more than particle size. There's a lot of factors to be considered. But even if a zeolite is able to cross the blood-brain barrier, it doesn't mean it's going to detox the brain, because it's up to the body to naturally release these things. So really the key to an effective detox of the brain is to optimize your body's lymphatic system, get the body naturally dumping these metals from the brain. And it goes back to the general approach of you want to remove as many circulating level 1 toxins as possible to make room for the body to feel comfortable to start dumping metals from the brain and from the organs, from the other tissue. And that's really the best way and the safest way to detox, because otherwise you could be taking something that crosses the blood-brain barrier. If your body doesn't want to let go of it, it's just not going to work.